the biggest thing to acknowledge and understand is what you're trying to do. It isn't trying to implement software. It's trying to change the architecture of your company. And I think a lot of people don't think about that, but every single company has an architecture. You have information on a spreadsheet, on a whiteboard, on a corkboard, in file folders, in people's heads, wherever it is. Currently, there is a data flow that's happening inside your business. And regardless of whether it was intentional or it's right or it's wrong or whatever it may be, it exists. And not understanding that, not thinking about that architecture is, I think, the biggest issue.
Everyone is talking about the importance of digital transformation, yet many companies are stuck as to how exactly to best implement it for their business. Regardless of what business you're in, shifting away from legacy systems is never easy, and not knowing best practices or even how to evaluate which system is best for you can make the process even more daunting. I'm Jane Singer, and you're listening to A Seat at the Table. Each week, I sit down with industry leaders, entrepreneurs, innovators, and authors who share their experience, expertise, and insights into succeeding in business. To get insights into what companies need to consider when making the leap into digitizing their operations, I sat down with Sunny Han, founder and CEO of Fulcrum, a cloud-based platform that helps manufacturers quickly sift and sort through hundreds of data points at lightning speed in order to make better decisions and make them faster. In this episode, Sunny will share the importance of reevaluating your company's data architecture before digitizing your operations, the overlooked benefits of being able to make faster decisions, the role that APIs are playing in boosting the capabilities of software systems, and why by digitizing you're not simply implementing software, but you're trying to evolve your entire operations. Before we get started, if you're looking to develop knitwear collections that will be a hit in any market, then Spin Expo is the place to go. It's the primary exhibition for yarns and knitwear. The fair is a rich resource featuring well-edited, high-quality collections as well as cutting-edge technical innovation, not to mention outstanding trend information that cannot be found anywhere else. You can learn more at spinexpo.com. That's www.spinexpo.com. There's also a link in the show notes. And check out our website. You can find all of the previous episodes of A Seat at the Table, the show notes, productivity tips, and lots of other useful information. You can find it at seat.fm. That's www.seat.fm. FM because it's a podcast. Now, let's talk to Sunny and find out how digitization can take our companies from where they are to where we'd like them to be. It's great to have you on the show, Sunny. I think that what you're doing, which is in digitization, digital transformation, and all that, is such a hot topic. So I'm really excited to dive in and hear what you have to say. I mean, it's the kind of thing that people look at on paper and they want to do it. And I think then you get started and you realize, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. Have you seen best practices in bridging that situation from legacy into digitization?
That's kind of primarily where our customers are. They're either in a mid-stage of digitalization from software they implemented 30 years ago or 20 years ago, or they're coming off of pen and paper, or they're growing into different companies. So I think the vast majority of our experience as a company is in doing this, right? We have a very innovative product. It's very new. It's completely digital. And so we fail sometimes, but pretty low low chance, like out of all our projects, like 4% of them fail or something like that, which is way, way, way less than the typical ERP implementation, which is like 30% or 40%. And I think that just has to do with the fact that we're very cognizant of the fact that we're a change agent, right? We're trying to do something that's a big thing of change. And it was actually a hard thing to train the implementation team, train the sales team. Everybody's looking for something easy, something smooth, something where they don't have to like tell the customer there's going to be a lot of pain. But, you know, in the sales process, we adopt like the challenger sale methodology, and the implementation process, we're very consultative. And the reason is that if we're going to market ourselves as fundamentally different, we're either fundamentally different and it's going to be painful to change, or we're not.
Right.
And in which case, then we're misrepresenting ourselves. So I think there just needs to be like a cohesiveness or like an integrity throughout the entire customer journey that says we're going to be different. It's going to hurt, but we're going to help with the pain. We're going to do as much as we can, be as generous as possible to help facilitate this change. So I think because every day of our lives is in being change agents to go from legacy systems, I think it's we're just used to it. So
As you said, you're working with this every single day with many clients. What do you see as the typical pitfalls that a company wants to think about trying to avoid as they're implementing ERP or even just a basic SaaS kind of a platform?
yeah, I think that the biggest thing to acknowledge and understand is what you're trying to do. It isn't trying to implement software, it's trying to change the architecture of your company. And I think a lot of people don't think about that, but every single company has an architecture. You have information on a spreadsheet, on a whiteboard, on a cork board, in file folders, in people's heads, wherever it is. Currently, there is a data flow that's happening inside your business. And regardless of whether it was intentional or it's right or it's wrong or whatever it may be, it exists. And not understanding that, not thinking about that architecture is, I think, the biggest issue. I think a lot of people think that they're doing a really good thing by just honing down into their process and making things as well known as possible. But if you want to actually grow your business and change it for the better, it means it has to change. It means that whatever software you implement should change your business. You need to verify that what your business is going to change into is going to be better, but trying to both change and improve your business, but still keep everything the same, those two things philosophically don't jive. And that is really, I think, the philosophical nugget of what exists when things go wrong, is that there is this tension where we want to keep on to what we have, but we also want the benefits of something new. And we have to choose. We have to choose, do we want to just continue to do what we want to do right now? Well, in that case, don't implement the software. If we want to change, then we have to know that it's going to be different. And that sounds so obvious, but I think a lot of times we psychologically don't understand what change means, right? We think that it's about incrementally improving what we have right now. But oftentimes what you find is you can get diminishing returns as you incrementally improve what you have right now. The biggest quantum growth changes, the most impactful things, actually require us to change the underlying structure of how we operate. So that is what I would encourage everybody to focus on more, not on understanding who you exactly are right now. Whoever you're the software that you're implementing, whatever change you're doing, the vendor should be the experts on their software and what it is, right? You just need to be the expert on where you want to go and why. Why is that important to you as a company? And we can meet in the middle and figure out a plan that'll get you there. But that plan necessarily is going to be change. Some people are going to have different lives, hopefully many people, and hopefully in general, everybody's change is going to be a positive change. But that's not guaranteed either. So that level of realism, that you're looking for something different, means that you're going to be different. That I think is really subtle, but really oftentimes overlooked.
I think that's an interesting way to look at it because we oftentimes think about it as sort of the big obstacle, right, is implementing the software. When it sounds like what you're saying is actually the heavy lifting that you have to do is looking at your business, understanding where you are, where you want to be, how you might need to reconfigure that hierarchy of data flow. And once you get that in place, digitizing that is then actually less onerous than it seems.
Yep, exactly. The systems out there that are really super customizable, to me, philosophically, that just means that a lot of those customers aren't actually willing to change. It needs to be customized to be what the past is. And if the past doesn't feel like a weight to you, then you're not ready for change. If the past feels like it's tethering you into a place that you can't grow, then you have to be able to take the risk to improve. So, yeah, I think that it's up to like a really well built piece of software, no matter where it is, should allow you to be better. It shouldn't allow you to keep the past. So
I think that's a very important point because, I mean, like everybody, me too, you're comfortable doing things the way you're doing it. And
absolutely,
even
that's
if
how our
it's
brains
not,
are structured.
yeah, even if it's not the best, it's, yeah, but I'm used to doing it that way and it's just faster to do it this way than it is to start over, reconfigure things, try to go through, sift and sort, figure out what you can get rid of. It's the kind of thing that, you know, you never have time for because part of you just doesn't want to do it. So I think it's interesting that you point out that sometimes software that's highly customizable just simply supports you in keeping the old way of doing things. It doesn't force you to be better.
Yeah, I believe that what we've been shown from a technology standpoint, from Google devices and Apple devices and Microsoft products and every product that works really well, this kind of new age of customer focused product development, is that the technology company is the expert at the technology and building it, but they also have to be experts at the end user and the customers that they're serving. And if that's the case, those companies should have some pretty strong opinions about how things should work, which should necessarily drive it away from customization and far more about that company continuing to build the future of that product for as long as possible. That just isn't how software was 30 years ago or 20 years. We wouldn't have the technology to be able to do that. We do now. And I think there needs to be a paradigm shift in thinking about software as an evolving piece of equipment that you have instead of something static that you buy, install, use for as long as possible. And I think the justification for that is that business structures, architectures, communication architectures, organizational structures, lines of business, our customers, vendor systems, those stayed relatively stable for decades at a time almost. And what we've seen in the last 10 years, 5 years, and specifically through COVID, those supply chain relationships, customers, what customers want, how fast products are changing, how fast revisions are coming through, how different businesses every year is rapidly increasing in speed, which means that that old school on-premise, unchanging software solution that worked for decades at a time in the past, it's just going to become less and less possible. So we need, I think, in manufacturing specifically, which is where we work a lot, the whole industry has been preparing for continuous improvement for a long time, but there's still a cultural shift that needs to happen to think about software as just another part of your business that supports your business, but fundamentally is going to change as rapidly as your business does. So I think that is something that is going to be tough, but unavoidable.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that people like the idea of technology. They embrace it in their personal lives, right? Everybody has a smartphone, and many, many people will upgrade to the newest, bestest, whether it be the smartphone or laptop or whatever, as soon as it comes out in their personal life. But when it comes to the business, people say, ooh, maybe not so fast. And I think that's interesting, how the leadership role that you feel that technology is taking in driving everything forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of the business owners that I talk to, they're the leaders of their organizations and they feel this pressure to not let their organizations down, right? They want to make sure they're making the right choice. I think they're just used to having a lot more time and a lot more information to make these decisions. And unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that most leaders and most organizations are going to be asked to make faster decisions more frequently than before, which is good. I think it allows the leader to develop and contribute more value to the organizations that they're leading, but it is a really uncomfortable thing for a lot of companies.
This is perhaps a little bit of a juxtaposition kind of a question. We talk about speed and the benefits of speed, right? And of course, things are moving faster. You have to make faster decisions on things. But at what point do we need to slow down certain aspects to make better decisions? I don't think I phrased that very well, but I mean.
No, I understand the question. I in a previous life, I talked to a bunch of race car drivers,
Okay.
and one of the concepts that they have is like, there's always jokes about speed limits or something like that, and there's this concept that they all have that they actually take pretty seriously, that the speed limit shouldn't be artificial. Obviously, it isn't on the racetrack, but you should drive as fast as you are comfortably in control. So I think that there's some allegories there to how businesses should be run. If you don't feel like you're in control of your business, don't make faster decisions, right? You need to slow it down. If you have the ability to maintain control at a high speed, you're going to win more often than not against other people. So the trick to speed is actually more control, more information, better decisions. And the more information you have, the better the decisions you make. There's this mechanical engineering concept that says, like, slow is smooth is fast, right? And you can slow down decisions and increase the speed at which you get information and make better decisions. And the cascading effect is going to be a string of higher quality decisions in a shorter amount of time. So I think really often we get overwhelmed by the fact that we need to make 100 decisions. And we forget that it's not 100 decisions a month. It's that we have a backlog of decisions. And actually taking it slower and making those decisions well and eating through that backlog and maintaining it as if it's WIP or any other sort of asset or liability that you have, I think that's a really good mental construct to think about it. If you're adding 10 decisions you need to make every single week, and that's a problem. That's a different problem. But for most companies that are out there, these decisions aren't steady. They come in big waves, and it's okay to have a backlog of decisions and to slowly work through them. But I think that speed really does fundamentally come from the availability of information, how quickly you get it, so that you can make these decisions faster. So the way that we think about it is that what our software is trying to develop is real-time information for people. You're not going to need it every day, but for the days where you have to make 17 decisions, it's going to be incredibly useful. So you can make those decisions within that day instead of over a period of 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, by which time it might be too late. So just like everything else in life, sometimes things come in huge bursts for us. And I think that's really where the availability of information helps you maintain a better sense of control to get that short burst of speed to make decisions when you need to.
That's such an interesting way of looking at it. I can see where you're coming from on that. If we dive a little bit into the technical side of things, there are certain terminologies that perhaps we bandy about when we talk about digitization and so forth that may be interesting to take a little deeper dive into what exactly it does and what role it plays. Maybe we can talk about the role of an API.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has changed a lot in the last 15 years is that web technologies are available now. So many of the systems that you use, many of our customers had on-premise implementations of SolidWorks and AutoCAD or Excel, and now most of the things are subscription-based. They're lower cost, and you pay monthly for them. They're on the cloud. They're easily connected with each other. On your phone, you're very used to having your email and your text messages all on the same device, to have your Mint account connect to your bank accounts and all these other things. And I don't think that has made it into manufacturing or into business software in general. But really what needs to happen is that at Fulcrum, we can't be experts at everything. We're not experts at accounting. We're not experts at CRM, but we very easily integrate with other systems like that. And that easy integration allows for people to really focus on what they're good at. Our customers are CNC machinists, they're rubber extruders, they're aluminum extruders, they're glass manufacturers, they're furniture assemblers, they're sheet metal fabricators. Just like in manufacturing, people have very specific focuses on what they really do well. And I think in the past, because systems were hard to integrate, every system had to be everything all the time. And I think because we have this notion of an API is essentially just it's like a port. It's like customs when you enter a country. We have these pre-agreed upon rules on how these systems can interact with each other. And that makes the ability to integrate systems and make it solid and consistent and reliable much easier. And because of that, we as a software company can make far better decisions. Whereas before we would have to build a CRM, build accounting software, we can easily integrate with QuickBooks Online, with NetSuite, with Intact, with all these different products. We can also integrate with Salesforce and whatever other flavor of CRM that's out there. What that allows our engineering team to do is focus really deeply on manufacturing operations, on job tracking, on production management, on sales orders, and on purchase orders and demand planning and purchasing planning. And that makes our product so much deeper than everything else. And it's all off the back of this kind of global agreement on how software systems are going to connect with each other. So I think what's really important to understand is that technology is different. And why that's important to our customers should have far more to do about what the impact is on who they are, and far less to do with any sort of buzzword about it. The impact is that all of our customers should be able to get much better understanding of what's possible, and a much better experience that's just very different than what it used to be. So I'm excited to see people get more aware of what's possible and to start thinking about business and business software differently. But I really think that the impact is going to be deeper, richer, more valuable software everywhere that just connects with each other very seamlessly.
We're going to take a quick break now, and then we'll be right back.
We were hiring when we were making 50 to 100K monthly losses.
And why? Welcome to episode 1.
I can't think of a single founder who's been around for a decent amount of time in business who hasn't had their tunnel of year. This was that year. We're going to be okay, yeah, Sheree. Some are going to hear this and think, you TDP. But hear me out. You only have to do the math to understand that very soon we were $500,000 down.
So basically, if I'm understanding you correctly, that before you would buy one massive software program that was multifunctional, and nowadays, by using an API to connect all these different pieces, essentially you're able to take many different specialty softwares and build a stack that talks to each other or integrates through the use of an API. Is that sort of the way it is?
Yeah, and I think that what a deeper understanding is that engineering teams behind the scenes between these companies, we just play a lot nicer with each other in the sandbox than software companies used to. And so we're working really diligently with each other, even if we're competitors, to make sure everything works really smoothly. There's a huge, like in game theory, we talk about zero sum versus non-zero sum. Like just because we win doesn't mean someone else has to lose. I think there's a really deep understanding of that in the software development industry now, where there's this really deep understanding that we can work together and compete, but also when we collaborate, the whole pie gets bigger. The amount of value we deliver to the industry gets bigger, and we each have whatever share we have, but we're delivering so much value and doing so much good for the world and for the industry, it doesn't matter. Neither of us should be selfish about preventing the other person from growing. So because it's still scary to work with competitors, it definitely is, but I think there's enough research and economic understanding and business understanding that this is becoming a ubiquitous decision for most companies, and I think that's a really good thing. So
yeah, it's interesting to see, but you're right. As that collaboration has grown, it has exactly that, increased the pie. It's made it more accessible for for a user base to be able to do more, to be able to do it more efficiently. Costs have come down a lot on different things for the end user. So looking at it, as an outsider looking in, I can definitely see what you're saying there. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about what you're doing with Fulcrum.
with Fulcrum, before I started the company, I worked for almost a decade with manufacturers, stumbled upon it and started loving it, and didn't realize how big manufacturing was. I think the world knows now that you can't build houses without manufacturing, you can't have cars without manufacturing, you can't have PlayStations. I realized that 6-7 years ago and saw this big problem in the marketplace, which is all this software, which has been incredibly useful in pushing manufacturing forward, is 20, 30, 40 years old. And there's just so much cool stuff that I know we can do to help the industry. And really, that was the premise. How do we take modern technologies that are robust? We're not inventing quantum computing over here, but we're taking things that are already proven to be super valuable and packaging it together in a really useful way. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to focus primarily on building the future manufacturing operating system. All the things that our customers need to operate their businesses, they should be able to find in Fulcrum. And because of that, and because we're building it in a way where we can scale it and continuously improve it, I believe that our mission to continuously deliver the best experience for these companies is going to be super valuable for them. So that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to find new and innovative, different and better ways to do everything from what to buy, when to buy it, who to buy it from, when to produce it, how much to produce it, who's doing it, tracking all of it, making these decisions faster, and ultimately ushering in a new generation of business owners and business executives and operators and shop floor employees that are all going to be kind of digitally resident and working in a platform that will last for a long time and be their platform of choice for quite some time. So that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to create the future of manufacturing. So,
wow, that's so exciting. And I like the fact that you've included all aspects of manufacturing, because I think oftentimes we look at it very specifically, supply chain management, and I think you're expanding it even beyond that, right? beyond the actual material side of things and the production side, further downstream as well, connecting all those pieces.
Yeah, I think that we try to not bite off more than we can chew. And we tried to like really focus on what we're doing right now, but all those things in the future in connecting the supply chain, making this internet of manufacturing, those are the things that really excite us about working on this problem. But for now, the primary goal is to make the product as great as possible for everyone, make it scalable, make it cheaper, easier to deploy, and just change the economics on this ERP problem. And I think once we solve that, the very next step is going to go really hard on doing cool things that we can do because we have this platform now. So,
wow. So that leads me to one last question, and that is, from your point of view, what's the next gen in digitization? Or do you still think there's a lot to be done with what we have now? I mean, is there something in the pipeline that's going to be the next big thing? Or maybe that's way too far away.
I think that I feel, even though we're really far ahead of the competition in the features that we have and how innovative we are, I feel like we're far behind what's possible. There's so many things that we have in our roadmap that are really exciting that I probably shouldn't talk about because I'll just piss off our product team. But I think there's just so many ideas that are still remaining. For me, even though we're ahead, I feel behind. I feel like we're at the beginning of this huge wave that's about to change. And I'm trying to build super rapidly for what I believe is going to start happening 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now that I want to be ready for, that I want to make sure that we're able to handle all of this and make a material impact on how manufacturing works. It might be egotistical or narcissistic, but I think what really motivates me is potentially our team being responsible for how manufacturing works in the future in a good way and in a beneficial way. And I think that includes ideas that we haven't even seen yet, that we'll have to build what we need to build now to even be able to see and know what it is in the future.
Wow, that's so interesting. Suddenly, the upstream side of things has become so dynamic. Everything that you're talking about has really put a new shine on the upstream side of the entire consumer product development and manufacturing.
Yeah, and I think that people, as they start to become more aware and more discerning about where their products come from, I'm excited for this kind of movement that I think is going to happen, where people are going to be excited to know the entire supply chain of where things are coming from, which it's really opaque to us right now, right? But I think it is really exciting, and I think there is a craft that we like celebrating. There was that show Dirty Jobs. There's like all these like things where people love understanding the craft of how things work or how it's made, or all these different shows. I think there's evidence that there's a huge amount of curiosity about it. And I think we're going to start entering a phase where there's a level of transparency that's going to be super interesting to people.
You touched on a big buzzword for our industry, which is transparency. And you're absolutely right. That's the next big push, is having this totally transparent supply chain. It's an end goal that everybody is trying to get to.
Yeah, I think the world changes at different speeds, just like we talked about before, right? It goes in waves, and we remember the last wave of change with a lot of pain, a lot of pride that we made through it, but a lot of pain as well. And I think oftentimes we hold ourselves back from allowing the next generation to thrive by holding back the change because we know how risky that change is, right? But I think that it's going to happen no matter what, right? We need younger people to be involved in the next generation of everything, including manufacturing. And the only way to allow that to happen is to allow some change to happen, to be discerning about it, to be really thoughtful about it, but really to not hang on to things that aren't going to be relevant in the future.
Yeah, that's really true. And it's an interesting point of view that you've put forward. Well, Sunny, thank you so much for joining us. I've learned so much from you, and it's really interesting to be able to explore what's happening on the tech side of the industry. I think that, oftentimes we're looking at so many other aspects that we overlook it. We just sort of take it for granted of what's happening behind the scenes. So thanks so much for sharing all of that. If people want to connect with you, how can they find you?
Podcast listeners, you can just email me directly, sunny like the weather, SUNNY @fulcrumpro.com. I'm happy to respond to anybody anytime that's listening to me spout my thoughts out on the internet somewhere. If they want to find out more about our product, fulcrumpro.com, book a demo right there and talk to one of our great salespeople.
I'm going to put the links in the show notes. Again, thank you so much for sharing your incredible knowledge and your vision.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode of A Seat at the Table, join me each week when I sit down with industry leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and authors who share their expertise, experience, and insights about succeeding in business and in life. And make sure to visit Spin Expo. From trend information to technical innovation, Spin Expo is the primary exhibition for yarns and knitwear. The fair provides well-edited forums featuring high-quality products that are bursting with creativity. To learn more, go to spinexpo.com. That's www.spinexpo.com. You can also find the link in the show notes for this episode. And don't forget to check out our podcast website, where you can find all of the previous episodes of the Seat at the Table podcast, the show notes, news about our upcoming masterclass series, and lots of other useful information. You can find it at seat.fm. That's www.seat.fm. FM because it's a podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Jane Singer, and I'll see you in the next podcast episode.